Welcome back to the Iranian Fever channel. Season 12 for Fallout 76 introduced more than just a variety of different cryptid-themed rewards, because the scoreboard itself tells a story. Taking a closer look at the illustrations, cards and figurines, a variety of different cryptids can be seen. Traditional representations of existing creatures we can find in-game, but some completely new ones as well, and at least one which was introduced as a new random encounter. In today's video, we're investigating what each of these represents and exploring the real-life sightings that inspired them, before listening to some unique dialogue that actually hints that some do already exist in Appalachia, and could be future cryptids coming to Fallout 76. Let's get started. Today's video is split into chapters as we investigate each of these creatures one by one. Alongside examining the scoreboard, we'll also hear from a semi-reliable source of information, the Season 12 ally Stephen Scarberry. This Mothman cultist has encountered many creatures on his travels, and will describe some random encounters that actually line up nicely with these new cryptids. I'll be playing each relevant excerpt alongside the breakdown of each creature, but starting in the top left of the scoreboard, we can see an illustration of what appears to be a giant snapping turtle, and this is the Ogua. The Ogua, also known as the Rivesville Monster or Holt Monster, is a freshwater cryptid native to West Virginia and the Pennsylvania area. 20 feet long and weighing in at 500 pounds, its visual representations all seem to depict the creature as an enormous snapping turtle. Common snapping turtles are native to those regions, and the Ohio River is of course present on the in-game map. As a new type of enemy, giant snapping turtles would be an interesting addition, except there is a slight hitch, I guess, because technically we already have mutated snapping turtles with the Mirelurk King. Still, wouldn't say no to a different variant. Returning to the board though, we can also see some cryptids we're already familiar with. The Sheep Squatch, Mothman and Grafted Monster all resemble historical depictions, as does the snake-like creature wrapped around the compass. And this is in fact a Snallygaster. Reputedly a bird-reptile chimera, originating in the superstitions of early German immigrants called a Schnellergeist, it was later combined with sensationalistic newspaper reports of the monster. In Fallout 76, the Snallygaster is a horrifying result of FEV experimentation at Westtech. A Phase 2 combination strain, it combined traits that resembled a number of different species, and the mutants we find throughout the wasteland differ drastically from its mythological namesake. 40 eyes, 2 rows of teeth, and a distinct lack of wings. Up next we have another in-game entity a bit further to the right with the Flatwoods Monster. Also known as the Braxton County Monster or Phantom of Flatwoods, the reported sightings described a tall man-like figure with a round red hooded face. Its eyes emitted greenish-orange light, and the figure made a hissing sound gliding towards those who witnessed it. In-game, this creature actually does hiss and glide, but is in fact a Zeton. We covered this creature extensively recently in a different video, testing the extent of its controlling ability on other entities in Fallout 76. One interesting update that came with Mutation Invasion though, was the end boss of a Zeton Daily Ops. The Alien Inquisitor might be a better given description now for this creature, and its inclusion in this manner suggests that these might be high up in the Zeton's hierarchy. Up next though, we have a werewolf that is most likely meant to be the Kentucky Wolfman. The beast of the lands between the lakes resembled a gigantic half-man, half-wolf standing over 7 feet tall. Similar to the Wendigo, its origins are most likely from a Native American story, and is sometimes credited with the ability to shapeshift. We can actually play dress up as something like this thanks to the Atomic Shop, but I would be skeptical about seeing something like this appear. Up at the top of the scoreboard we can see Indrid Coles, or the Smiling Man as he's also known. So far he's the only new creature that's illustrated here to appear in-game and feature in one of Stephen's random encounter stories. If you want to find him yourself, then you'll need to check random scene encounter locations, and I've left a link for a previous video showing you how to do this. But the Smiling Man is unmistakable in his black Jack Gordon outfit, and seemingly teases the next update slated for June. If you interact with him repeatedly, he will say this:
"Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. At least, not yet. I've heard the moon can be Baloo, and I trust that to be true. Ever dance with the devil under a blue moon?"
Once in a blue moon and the devil do crop up multiple times. As previously mentioned, Stephen will also recount a story about meeting him.
A very friendly man. While his personality was cold, he could not shake his smile. I feel as though we were looking for similar things.
And this is important for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's important to remember that Stephen Scarberry is a Mothman cultist who fervently worships the Mothman. Because of this, he is often extremely deluded. If you describe seeing the Scorched Mothman in the Research Facility J, he will dismiss this.
Sick? Oh no. This must have been some form of mutated butterfly man.
However, he wasn't lying about meeting the Smiling Man, which does give some credence to the other random encounter stories he will tell. The next relating to another illustration on the board, and this is the Greenbriar Ghost. A name popularly attributed to the alleged ghost of Elva Zona Hester Shue, a young woman who was murdered in 1897. Initially judged to death by natural causes, the court later declared that she'd been murdered by her husband, following testimony by the victim's mother, who claimed her daughter's spirit revealed the true cause of her death. Stephen references this too.
Towards the White Springs, I could faintly see a woman in need of help. She ran unobstructed through the trees before I lost sight of her near an old cemetery.
And it's also referenced by some idle dialogue in the White Springs. Similar to the Wolfman, I'd be surprised if this ghost became an enemy type, but it could be an interesting random encounter. Something that I could see being added though is the Veggieman. Found at the top right corner of the scoreboard, Stephen describes his creature best, a description that also almost perfectly matches the reputed real-life sighting.
In the thick of a forest, I heard a high-pitched jabbering close by. As I approached, some tall foliage appeared to reach out and grab a settler. Be wary of strange trees, friend.
The Veggieman does actually have some similarities to the interloper though. Both are closely associated with wood, and entering the chamber of the interloper you will hear a low hum. Although not an exact match for the jabbering associated with the Veggieman, another element from its sighting is it reportedly spoke telepathically with its victim. The interloper called out to the Mothman cultists telepathically as well, bringing many of them to Lucky Hole Mine. The Veggieman was also said to be very tall, arguably over 7 feet, with a thin, semi-human appearance. Partially plant-based, it possessed large ears, with striking eyes that oscillated in colours. Returning to the board and heading down to the middle, we can see a sad, pig-like creature, and this is the Squonk. Described as a wart-covered creature ashamed of its appearance, the legends of the Squonks originated in the late 19th century. Its skin was reportedly ill-fitting, and spent most of its time weeping, and you can actually see a pool of tears in the illustration itself. In reality, it seems that this creature was likely inspired by a type of pig. Described as having tusks, it also doesn't sound too threatening, compared to some of the other creatures on the list, with its fearsome aspect being contagious misery. Incidentally, something we have seen appear on some new camp items is the mounted radhog and butchered boar meat. So perhaps we could see some kind of pig-like creature as a new enemy type a bit further down the line. Last but not least on the scoreboard is a bipedal wyvern-like creature, and this is the Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil is a creature native to the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, and it's often described as having hooves, a snake's tail, bat wings, and a head that looks something like a horse. While there are many stories detailing the origin of the Jersey Devil, sightings have been reported since the beginning of the 1700s, and continuing on until the past decade. Its name has often been attributed to a great many cryptid sightings throughout the region. Stephen does tell a random encounter story that at first I was sure was referring to a scorched beast.
I heard the majestic sound of wings flapping in the night, but then I saw the red winged creature and there was screaming.
However, after reading a little bit more about the Jersey Devil, one attributing factor is a loud scream it supposedly emitted in some sightings. It also is often described as having red wings. The scorched beast itself could also be a reference to this, as it too is pretty noisy in combat and can seem dragon-like. But finishing up with the illustrations, this is a good juncture to discuss a creature that doesn't currently exist in game, but it does have some similarities to a creature that we can find. The mysterious Seneca Rocks vulture might be a reference to the Thunderbird. Before getting into that, let's dive into what we already know about this bizarre Easter egg. Only one can be seen in game and appears to be a large mutated vulture, pinned to the rocks by a series of spikes. The design of the vulture was originally a concept for the Scorched Beast, before they went with a bat-like model during development. And interestingly, the finished model is still in the game files, but of course it was eventually cut. It also has a fully functional animation skeleton. This dead variant was added in the Wastelanders update, but today only really functions as an Easter egg. But how does it relate to the Thunderbird? Native tribes all across North America, especially along the Pacific coast, and in the Great Lakes area, have stories depicting enormous birds of prey. Some stories told that these birds were so large and powerful that when they flapped their wings, thunder was created. Lightning flashed out of their eyes, and water fell off their backs, creating rain. Although often compared to prehistoric pterosaurs, they do seem to share a lot of similarities with the large species of condor. Condors or vultures themselves are not too dissimilar from the respective source of the mutated vulture we find at Seneca Rocks. Another large flying enemy might not be a necessity, but perhaps in a particular section of Appalachia, seeing these added could make things interesting. Are we likely to see any of these creatures or others added in future updates? Possibly not, but new enemy types have been added since launch. The Sheep Squatch, Wendigo Colossus, Floaters, and the Ultrasight Titan were all added in different updates after launch, with cryptids seemingly becoming more prevalent with the addition of the Smiling Man, and these random encounter stories we may yet see some more added. But what would you like to see? Are there any new cryptid enemies you'd like to see added? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this particular video, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. We post a variety of different Fallout 76 content, so turning on the bell icon is definitely the best way to stay up to date. With that said, I'm off. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.